I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson. Thank you for joining us, as always, here on the internet. Couple of things before we get into today's podcast. We're about a week and a half out from a very special event that I'm a producer on, and Intellectual Entertainment is a major participant of. It's the Jumpstart a Life telethon to raise funds to help my friend Derek Johnston in his battle against stage 4 kidney cancer. Derek used to be the general manager of the Horton Grand Theater, where the San Diego Film Awards took place. It's also the location where we did our two big live podcasts, our 100th episode and our 2-year anniversary episode, which had Chase Masterson on as a guest from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Chase will also be a part of this telethon coming up. The Jumpstart a Life telethon will begin at noon on March 16th, and you can tune in at jumpstartalife.org or on the YouTube channel for Intellectual Entertainment, which you can get to as well at theintellectual.com. But probably easiest just to go to jumpstartalife.org. If you are interested, we're still taking in corporate sponsorships, so you can find information on sponsoring at jumpstartalife.org. We have all sorts of levels that you can come in at and have your logo included on the website. You can be mentioned during the telecast. The show is going to go out primarily on jumpstartalife.org as well as on Facebook. We're working on seeing if we can get some other platforms in as well, but it'll be as big an impact as we possibly can make it. There's a crew of about 80 people between talent and tech crew that'll be working on this show, and we're really excited about putting this together and trying to raise some funds to help my friend who's been battling stage 4 kidney cancer since October 2016. And when he was first diagnosed, he was told he maybe had a year to live. And he's been at it now for over 2 years, almost 2.5 years. And a year ago, he started an immunology treatment in a clinical trial at UCSD Medical that has been working wonders on his cancer over the past year. His most recent doctor visit, they told him, and I got to see the numbers myself, he's had a 35% reduction in his cancers since he started treatment just before of April last year. And that's incredible. And he's put on about 49 pounds or so of weight in the last 10 months. In April last year, he was down to about 102 pounds. And he's a little over 6 feet tall. So that give you some idea how skinny he had gotten. So he's put on weight. His cancer cell has been reduced 35% from where it was about a year ago. And it's just incredible. And his spirits are very, very high. His health is definitely improving and coming back. And we have hope that he'll be able to get back on his feet and start doing some limited work from home type stuff, maybe even by the end of the year. But he's got to stay on this treatment that he's on. And to do that, he has to stay in San Diego. And I want you to just close your eyes for a moment and think for yourself. If you suddenly became sick today and had to stop working tomorrow, how long would your personal savings last? And how long would it be before you needed help from other people? In Derek's case, between him and his brother, they've managed to hold out without any help from anybody for a little over 2 years. And I think that's pretty amazing. But for Derek to stay in San Diego and not move out of this region where it's the only place he can get this treatment, this clinical trial is at UCSD Medical in San Diego. He has to stay in San Diego. If he has to leave to go live with family members elsewhere, he's going to move off of this treatment. And his chances of survival will dramatically reduce. Right now, he's on the path of beating cancer. He's moving towards actually being one of these people who is on the forefront of surviving a stage 4 diagnosis. And we need him to stay there as much as anything to finish the clinical trial, because the clinical trial could help more people past him. And so we need to keep him in San Diego, and we're raising money to try and help alleviate his financial burden for a while longer until he's good and well enough to start working again and take care of himself in that way. So I really hope you'll take the time and visit jumpstartalife.org or like us on Facebook at Jumpstart a Life, and join us on March 16th for a 12-hour live stream telethon with comedians and bands and myself and Whitney and Mark and Steve Schwartz will be working it. I mean, almost the entire intellectual team is a part of this, as well as our partners at Heartland Films, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So any donations or sponsorships are tax deductible. And Grudio Pictures and Preposterous Films, these 4 production companies are putting this together. And it's going to be a really great program. It's for a great cause. You're helping us save a life. And I hope that you will join us. And now we're going to get into our interview. Whitney and I interviewed Shea and Larry New in Palm Springs a couple weeks ago. And this is a really fun conversation with 2 people who somehow managed to bounce from mob city to mob city to mob city over the years while pursuing their passions of dance and music. And it's a very entertaining discussion. It's one that we could get into way more depth over time if we had the time with them. But I think it's a good taste of kind of that weird era towards the end of Frank Sinatra's life, when the mob still kind of controlled everything in a very public way in entertainment in Vegas and Atlantic City and into Palm Springs. And it's a cool trip down some avenues of history that maybe you haven't heard or thought about. And so here they are, Shea and Larry New on the Intellectual Podcast.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
I'm doing a hair show next Monday, so it'll be whatever they want it to be, I guess.
You are doing the hair show?
Yeah.
That's San Diego.
LA.
Cool.
Yeah.
Other ear. The microphone's pointed away from your mouth now.
I did so many things in my life, I had to make notes.
I like it. Prepared, sir.
Or otherwise, we're just a bunch of old people going, I can't remember.
Well, that too.
It's not the first set of notes to show up on the show, I'll tell you that much. So, Whitney, why don't you get us started?
All right. Well, we are here with Shea and Larry New. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Hi, Whitney.
Hi. So I know Shea because I worked with her at College of the Desert while I was there. And then I got to know Larry through Shea. And while I was staying with them, I got to be regaled with some really interesting stories of the entertainment world back in the
day.
in the day. Back in
It's
the
history,
day. I'm like,
yes.
Yeah, first one, 1958.
Yeah. So I just thought that you guys would be a really interesting couple to have on the show and tell us your stories and, how you got into the
You
entertainment
could
world.
lose your job thinking like that.
Very possibly.
So you have like pre-Shea and then après-Shea. So
Yes.
yeah, you just have to know that I'm his third wife. Right. So there was a lot of life before me. So when do you want to start?
I'm going to start with Keene Records,
Okay.
1958.
1958. So Keene Records. Where was that?
Keene Records was in Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills.
It had 2 artists that were doing some things. It had Lou Rawls was there. Sam Cooke was there. Most people may not even know who those people are today, but
That's a shame.
Yeah.
No, real shame. Well, Lou
The
Rawls.
change is going to come. Yeah.
Yeah. Lou Rawls went on to have a big career, and so did Sam, but he was murdered. So
That does end your
That
Yeah, it does end your
ends your
career.
career real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And you went that first time
that
with?
first time was we were asked. We had a singing group, high school guys, and we were asked by Speedy Cop was his name.
Not his real name, stage name, surely.
Oh, come on. This guy wore plaid underwear, and striped coats. And I mean, he was amazing. But he had a client who was Russ Tamlin, the dancer.
Yeah, from West Side Story.
Yeah, his brother, Johnny, was had a song he wanted to record. And so Speedy Cop was setting it up, and he knew the guys at Keene Records. So they took us over to Keene Records to do the backup vocals for Johnny. And Herb Alpert, this was his first job out of the Army. And he was the A&R man over there. We learned how caustic Herb could be. He did not like Johnny, but he liked us. And so they signed us to a 1-record deal, took one of the songs that we had written and recorded it. Well, as it turns out in those days, if you don't have a hit right away, you're forgotten forever.
Right.
There were a lot of one-hit wonders, and there were a lot of almost one-hit wonders, and that was us. And so that ended. Herb went all about his merry way, being Herb Alpert, and we basically just we're just guys with jobs. We went back to work, and then in 62, 63, Herb Alpert was putting together A&M Records. It wasn't A&M at the time; it was called Carnival Records. But
the garage, that's an interesting.
Yeah, it was in Herb's garage. Well, not in the very beginning. It was at their apartment, a block down from the Whiskey A Go-Go. But yeah, Herb had he had it going. He wanted to record. Called me, asked me if I had a singing group. I said, yeah. He called us in, and he wanted to re-record the old song "Little White Lies." We all kind of okay. And we did, and it made top 50 in the nation. Didn't mean a thing. Didn't really mean a thing. Got us a tour up north for a little while. That was pretty hard because there was no money in it for you. Nobody was picking up your tab. You're still kind of on your own. So anyway, we recorded Little White Lies, and then they became A&M Records right then, and Alpert and Moss.
We get that. A&M.
Alpert, Jerry Moss. Went on to be zillionaires.
That's interesting. I never knew that's what A&M stood for.
I didn't know that either.
Albert and Moss.
Albert and Moss.
Yeah, Jerry Moss was a wonderful man, really wonderful man. And he liked me a lot, but you have to be liked by both halves of the partnership in order for it to work.
Yeah.
So what was it that they asked?
I beg your pardon?
What did they ask you to do?
Well, we recorded Little White Lies.
Yeah, you got that.
And then kind of got into a contest. The second song that came up was a really sensational song. Herb changed it. And I had an attitude about it, and that attitude got me the door.
What did he change about it?
Oh, it changed everything about it.
Was that Dancing with the Laughing Face?
No, that was another story.
Different one. Different story. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was called, I don't think it was damaged.
Okay, get to Tijuana Brass. Tell us about that.
The Tijuana Brass, we were right there at the time when they were recording the Tijuana Brass for the very first time. And so they brought us into the studio. We did the voices on the background for the Tijuana Brass.
And a bill.
And we got a bill too.
For that. So
that's what happens in the record
business. You didn't
business.
get any money, you got a bill.
So why did you get a bill for something that you sang
because they charge you
backup
for
on?
everything that you've
Charge you
done.
for the studio time,
They
charge you for the
studio time,
equipment,
they charge
charge
you
you
Even though
for
you're doing it for
recording.
him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how the record business works.
Yeah.
If you have a hit, it doesn't matter. If you don't, you got a bill.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got a bill. I wasn't really happy about all that.
I bet.
So, yeah. So,
but you had a lot of other interesting stories in that time when you started doing pools and you were doing the heart-shaped actress. You know who I mean?
Yeah, I went into servicing swimming pools, and the only pools that were around, really, basically, the Valley, San Fernando Valley hadn't happened. So the only
Beverly
pools
Hills.
that were available were in Beverly Hills. So, yeah, I got
So tell us the female. You know who I mean?
Jane Mansfield.
Made Jane Mansfield. Okay.
Her heart-shaped pool.
Yeah.
What a monster that
But and Maury Amsterdam.
I did Maury Amsterdam.
The pool is a monster, or Jane Mansfield?
No,
She was
the pool.
She was a nutcase, I tell you.
And the
Maury Amsterdam and your guy, the choreographer,
Hermes Pan.
Hermes Pan.
Yeah, but also from
Howard Keel.
Howard Keel. That's what I was trying to think of he sang for all these people. That was
The interesting thing about Howard was, I mean, it's back. Oh, the most beautiful home in the world, along Coldwater, in Beverly Hills, and I'm out there scrubbing the pool, and he's in this room, and he's singing, "If ever I would leave you," da, 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 da. And it was early in the morning, and
But that was Robert Goulet's song. Okay, never mind.
He was trying to hit that F at the end, and it was 8:30 in the morning, and he was having trouble with it. And so his pool man joined in about 6 bars before the end of it the next time, and I had the leaves off the trees with that F. And he stuck his head out the window first. He said, "Who in the hell is making all the racket down there?" Oh, God, there goes my job, I got 3 kids to support. He came down and talked to me for a while, and it didn't really amount to anything as far as work, but very nice man. But you
got to reunite living here in the desert because Howard Keel came out here, and he always called him Kid.
He always called me Kid. He came out, and we met at Michael's radio program, and first thing he asked me was, he came up and he said, "You must not have worked very much." I said, "Why would you say that?" He said, "Because you're tall." He said, "They had me walking in more ditches and standing in more holes than you could imagine because all the leading ladies were little tiny."
Oh, yeah.
So tell the Maury Amsterdam story. I like that one.
Yeah, Maury was a pretty good story. Maury was a great guy. And I was cleaning his pool, middle of summer, it was real hot, and I was wearing just my shorts and my tennis shoes, and I was pretty buffed out in those days. And he was over putting jokes into his tape recorder. Mm-hmm. And so, I was brazen, and I said, "What are you doing over there, Marty?" And he said, "Hey, I'm working on some jokes. We're working on a movie." And so, "Really? What kind of movie?" He said, "We're doing this movie about this and that. We're having trouble casting this one part of this college football player." And I put the pole down, walked right around in front of him. And I said, "Well, you found him, buddy." And he was real nice. He sent me into the studios the next day, but I wasn't really in the business that way. I didn't understand anything about the acting world.
The discipline, the things to be ready when the opportunity comes.
So I blew that one really good. I went in. I know now that I auditioned for who's the guy?
Max Baer?
No, he thought I looked like he told the guy, "This is a real Max Baer."
Was this for the Beverly Hillbillies role?
No,
that was a different story. Sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, I didn't get it. I went in a suit and tie, and all I should have done was thrown on my Letterman sweater and gone in there, and they wouldn't even have asked me to read, but they asked me to read. Yes. And I was supposed to read opposite Rosemarie in a love scene. Ooh, I had lit the triple budget.
Wait, is that Rosemary Clooney?
Yeah.
Was it? Or was it from Dick Van Dyke?
No, the Rosemary from Dick Van Dyke show. Oh, yeah. So anyway, that was just an interesting story. And Maury was real nice to me. And he was right down the street from Howard. And he was right around the corner from Hermes Pan. She always got upset when you met Hermes Pan.
Well, he took him into his backyard and said, "Come on in and let me show you some of my memorabilia." So he opens this trunk with all these pictures.
A trunk is as big as
basically Fred Astaire, if you know who Hermes Pan is.
Maybe we should explain to the audience why you would be jealous. Because
I'm a choreographer.
So how did you come into this story? Because obviously you didn't grow up in California, right?
No, I was born in California.
You were born in California.
Yeah, I was adopted. I was Armenian and French family that did not want me, and they put me up for adoption, Children's Home Society. And then I went with some people that took me back east, and then I came back to California. So I'm really a California girl.
So how long did you live in the East, though? That was
I spent my senior year back in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm a California girl.
California girl. Yeah. And then when did you start getting involved in dancing?
Well, that's an interesting story because I had polio. So I was bedridden from 9 to 11. And apparently I got a bad vaccine, that first year of bad vaccination, some sort of experimental dosage. So I was bedridden for 2 years. They told me I probably shouldn't dance. And at 17, I was at UC San Diego being a chemistry oceanographer major. And I said, this was my passion. And I switched to UCI and I just took dance. And I was lucky enough to have Eugene Loring as a mentor and Anthony Tudor, and people like Arthur Mitchell and Merce Cunningham as teachers. So I was able to have a career in that really kind of last ditch effort. So that's how I got into it. But,
and where did your career start, or where did it take you, I guess?
Well, I had graduated thinking I was never going to be a dancer because they all had that opinion that you weren't very good. And so I kind of believed it, and I had this medical issue. And so we were doing something to see how I would react to this medication. And my parents took me to Vegas. There was a place called the Hacienda Hotel, and we stayed there as a tourist. And I had this one phone call that, not a phone call, but a phone number that my dad had just somehow gotten. I don't even know why, but it was Bill Moore and George Arnold, and they had the show at the Hacienda. So they said, I went and talked to them, and they said, come on in and we'll audition you. If you would actually do it for us tonight, we would give you a job. And I said, oh, okay.
This is ice skating.
Well, that was the kick. I wasn't an ice skater, so I went down and took a lesson real quick and went back, saw the show, and actually auditioned. They looked at me and they said, oh my God, you have spots, which meant that I had tan lines.
Oh,
yeah. And they didn't like that. I said, okay, fine, bye. And they said, no, we need somebody on stage left desperately. So I went on that night like a fool, and
not being an ice skater.
I had been raised in Pennsylvania. See, so I was lucky. I had been on skates before. I just wasn't very good. So it worked out. And my very first dance audition was the Folies Bergère.
Oh wow!
And that was kind of a fun story too, because I didn't make the first cut the first day, and my friend said to me, don't worry about it. They won't remember. So come on back with us the second day. And I did. And I didn't make the second cut. And then all of a sudden, Jerry Jackson says, oh my gosh, I forgot I needed a swing girl. So they needed 7 girls, not just 6. So he looked at me and he looked at the other girl and he says, who can do a jump split? And I had no idea what it was. I was in a pair of high-heeled boots, but I jumped up and down split. Thought that was as good as that was going to get. And they hired me. And then the first day I was late, an hour and a half late, because they had this thing called a digital alarm clock. It was brand new. I'm old. And I had set it for 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. And so he tried to fire me that first day, and he couldn't. So it was a piece of fate, kind of. And then by the time the show opened, he had changed his mind about me. And I was actually the spokesmodel when it went on HBO.
There you go. Tenacity. Tenacity.
Yeah, so,
man.
yeah, you never know where things take you. You just kind of play it out.
Well, and just your persistence. You got cut 2 days in a row. You're like, coming back. You guys don't know.
No, nobody would talk to me for 6 weeks of the show's rehearsal. I was like the piranha. Yeah. So, but I was going to just be the best friggin' dancer I could be. And so it was a great lesson.
How did you two meet?
Well, I was dancing in the Folies Bergère, and he was singing in the Casino de
Paris.
And it was July 7th, 1977. So it was 7/7/77. So
that's when I signed my contract. I thought, this is it.
Yeah, in Vegas, way better. Yeah. So, but little did we know that was a moment of history where Howard Hughes and the mob and Ralph Lamb, the Cowboys, came together, and the FBI all were swirling around. And there was this energies, these tensions that were happening in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And I always said if I had known it was history, I would have paid more attention. But so we met then at the time frame was in the grocery store, and he kind of chased after me.
I was stalking her.
And I said, get away from me, Anyway.
I never seen anybody so beautiful. And I was already in the Casino de Paris, so I was already working every night with 50 beautiful women. And
So what would he want with me?
And I was driving
thinking.
out of the parking lot, and she was going through the swinging door, and I saw that, and went, oh my God, parked my car and went in after her. And but she wasn't dressed up or anything. She was just, there to buy some dog food. And I came on to her and thought in a nice way, and I mentioned a name of somebody from the trop that was not a very good friend of hers.
Well, because my boyfriend had just started dating her.
And I said, well, I know somebody.
My ex-boyfriend
over there.
at that point.
Yeah, that was not a good person to name.
So she said, well, if you like her, you won't like me. And she walked away. And so I chased her again. I said, come on, I don't really know these people. Cop my little boy plea. And she said, okay, come backstage after work tonight and we'll talk. But when she came down those stairs with her full makeup, the only thing she'd taken off was those big eyelashes. And I just fell in love, and that was 40 years ago.
We were married. Well, he asked me to marry him within a week.
Wow.
And we were married.
In a month.
Yeah.
Man, smooth operator Larry.
Oh, yeah, I was moving.
But, that's what I'm saying. When you have your third wife, you know what to do because all those other two are like, the template for what to do and what not to do.
But most of those
And that
things,
was, 42 years ago now.
42 years ago.
So
it was the right move for us as a couple.
Except my mom always said to me, don't ever marry a musician. I didn't listen. But I don't know if you want to get into those stories of what happened in Vegas.
Yeah.
Because maybe I should let you tell that.
How long were you guys in Vegas?
Well, I got there in 77.
I got there in 74, so I was almost 11 years total. And I was a founding member of Nevada Ballet Theater, so I was pretty established. And but he drew the attention of a lot of the men who ran the industry, and you have to kind of frame that moment in time was they were not able to get licensed for gaming because of their history, their background. So they decided to go in through.
They were dirty.
Well, they wanted to go through the entertainment world because they wouldn't have to get licensed, and that's what they did. So
my manager at the time, Charlie Zimmerman, who found me and told these guys that I was the guy, that they could buy the Silverbird Hotel with me. I was squeaky clean, had the talent, everything was there. The package was all there. So that's what they were attempting to do. They were attempting to buy the Silverbird Hotel with me.
They had Alan Glick at Stardust, and so there was that whole issue that he was just a front. So it wasn't the first time it had been done, but they offered him 10% of a casino, which is a lot of money.
Good chunk,
and all the catch, they came and talked to me, and the catch was you have to let him go. We had just been married 9 months, so they said they wanted him single, and I split because I thought at that moment I wasn't going to keep him from his dream. They were going to make him like a Wayne Newton. So that was the beginning of our rocky relationship right there. And he kind of chased me, but he turned them down, and that was kind of when our problem started.
Yeah.
So that arm's length agreement, if you know what that
When
means.
I make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah.
And they did.
And the arm's length is
And
around
you
the world.
refused it.
And I refused it.
But he had already seen both sets of books.
They'd already showed me the book.
So that means he could have not lived through that one, really.
Wow.
They were trying to compromise me.
Yeah.
So it was a very scary time.
So guess what happened there's a lot of things that happened in between. They were going to put him in the Sahara, in the Congo room. And little did we know that guy was connected too.
Everybody was connected.
Well, we just were naive.
We just were so naive.
And so then we went to Atlantic City, which was like frying pan to fire.
Yeah.
But there you go. And that was the first year that Resorts was open. So they got not just a law that said we could have gaming, but that we would only allow one hotel. So it's pretty powerful. And most people don't know in that moment of time was a war between the Philadelphia faction and the New York faction. And there was more than 50 soldiers died in that 1 year that we were there.
Wow.
So it wasn't a great place to go.
So what year was that you guys moved to Atlantic?
That was
City?
80 or 81, somewhere in there. And
81.
so we got back there because I was dancing in the show, and they hired him to be the lead singer, and that was at the Valley Forge Lily Langtree room that we did this great little show. And when that show was over, I went to Playboy had a show at the Atlantis, and that's where I went to there. And unemployment was about 45%, right, Ben?
Right. I scraped wallpaper off the walls to make money.
Yeah.
It was really a hard time.
So that didn't last long, but that was a really scary time because we just were in a whole miasma of something that we didn't understand. That was very dangerous. So we came to Palm Springs.
You guys just keep hopping to
I
the
know. Well,
spots.
we're so stupid. We're naive little people that just, I always say white people from suburbia that don't know anything, So then the parents of those people lived in Palm Springs. So anyway, I don't know. If
Sinatra's playground,
Yeah. And didn't you have a beef with Sinatra at one point?
He had a beef with you, maybe.
Well, they all had a beef with me.
They all knew who he was.
They all had a beef with me, and I was this guy that turned down their deal. Well, they lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
When I said they were ready to rock and roll when I said no.
But wait, it took us 5 years to really figure out that there was a vendetta. There was actually a Dun & Bradstreet that said he uses the needle.
Yeah.
That was their code for not to hire him. So we didn't understand why he couldn't keep. He would get work and then he'd lose work. I mean, sometimes they would actually pull right while he's singing. They would pull it. That was
So I was a bad boy.
So
in their eyes.
Yeah. So when we came here, it was like Al Anthony was at the Riviera and he hired me to do a show dancing, and he hired Larry to sing. And so we thought this was going to be a great place because we came immediately, got work.
So we hadn't touched
the powers that be that you have to ask permission.
Right. I got in without them knowing I was even here. And they actually sent a friend of mine. She was a friend of mine. I mean, I didn't know at the time that she was married to
She was famous.
Yeah. Roberta. And she was
singer.
She was the first champagne lady with Lawrence Welk.
Yeah.
And she was a sweetheart, and she really loved me. She just cared about me. But she called me up one day and she said, "Larry, I'd like to take you to lunch." It's fine, great, that'd be fun. We're having lunch, and she says, "I'm really not here to have lunch with you. I'm here to relay a message from Bobby. And the message is, if you don't stop looking for work in this town." And you know what? The pool business looked really good to me right then. And so that's what I did. I went back into the pool business. And I didn't really, I did a few little things out here. I mean, I did things at the McCallum Theater, Jesus Christ Superstar, and I did some of their shows. But
he ended up singing the principal singer for Tom Costa's the Spiritual Center. What is it called now?
I don't know what it's called now.
It was the Religious Science Church on Bertola in those days. But he was there 10 years. He was their principal singer.
Then the Palm Springs Fabulous Follies came to town. We'd already produced our show, Blues Boulevard, which, that's another story.
Well, that was kind of about autobiographical about our experiences. Yeah.
But so we had already.
So he did the first year of the Palm Springs Follies. Actually, the first
3 seasons.
Yeah.
And that became a huge hit out here.
And that was in late 80s, early 90s?
90s.
Early
like
90s,
93,
92 we
yeah.
opened in 92.
And at that same time, I opened the India Bingo Palace became Fantasy Springs, and they put in a Vegas show called Festival. And Greg Purdy and I produced this. I say produced, but we all together made this show happen.
Those are the photos that are on your wall at your house, right? Oh, you look so gorgeous in those.
Well, I was 42 and still dancing, kids. So yeah.
She doesn't look 42 in those photos, let me tell you.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to be that person that brought in the first Vegas style show. So I was actually before the Follies.
Absolutely were.
But we were a normal show. He was old people's show. Sorry.
Not me. Rick Markowitz brought the old people show.
Well, he's the one that made it successful. So there you go.
Yeah, but that was an amazing show.
But the fun part about Festival for me was that I got to do a Kauai creation story, which sounds really bizarre. But because those are the indigenous people of the valley, we got to tell their story. And most of their history was all oral. They didn't have it written down. So it was in a moment where we were going to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a really kind of fascinating moment in time. Now I get to teach it in my history of dance class. But we've seen the valley really kind of grow up. And then we both did Sinatra My Way, the show at the Annenberg. That was 180 shows.
Oh, wow.
And I got to choreograph it and dance in it. And I was pretty old. I was 47. That was my last show. And but it was all the Sinatra charts and the rhythm section of Sinatra. And it was like, I'm not going to let that go.
Oh.
I'm going to dance to that group of musicians.
Heavenly music to be right next
it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Blues in the Night. And I mean, that was the Sammy Davis piece. But
yeah, and I was the live announcer. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, so, when I'm in my history of dance, I ask kids about Sammy Davis because when I first got to Vegas, before I knew Larry, he had parties and really fun parties for entertainers, And, but I always tell the story about when he opened Caesar's Palace, he had to come in the back door through the kitchen.
Because
He was the headliner.
It's amazing, right?
That was like 1964, 65. So
He was a colored man.
yeah.
Honest to God, we just blew our minds. But, Sammy
before.
overcame all that. He really did.
Yeah, that was before me, I guess. I don't know.
I guess.
So I feel like I should ask you some questions. No?
You should ask me some questions.
Yes, ask her.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
What kind
She,
of questions do
she
you want to
hates
ask?
talking about herself on the show.
I
Ask her
do,
questions.
because...
Well, tell me about your most recent movie. I know that the premiere is happening.
Well, so Carbon, which is the feature that I did, is actually premiering March 21st. But even more recently, the last time I came out to the desert, I did a short film called For the Love of Noodles, which we're going to be interviewing the producer and director later on tonight for that show. And that was a blast. It was a comedy, which I usually don't get cast in comedies.
Was this The Clown? No, that was a different one. Oh, sorry. Shut up, Shay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry. Shoot.
It's all right. We can cut that.
Sorry.
Okay. Sure.
Trust me. Later on, you'll find out why that's hush hush.
Okay. Oh, hush hush. Sorry.
But yeah, so
I didn't know I was stepping on toes. Anyway, so what's on your agenda right now?
Well, I've been auditioning a bunch.
Yeah.
I actually have to go up to LA either early tomorrow morning or later on tonight because I have an audition tomorrow to be a host for a haunted ghost show like that. I wouldn't actually do the like.
Is that for Halloween?
No. It's like one of those ghost detectives, where they go in and they investigate a place. I wouldn't be doing the investigation. I'd literally just be doing the intro where I talk about this is the history of the place and then throw it to some other idiots who are going to be chased by demons.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, House Hunters had that voiceover for how long now? 20 years.
Yeah.
They just got rid of her, so maybe there's a job.
Yeah. You just never know.
I don't know.
But yeah, I've just been out there, auditioning, hustling, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw it back to you guys because David's right. I don't like talking about myself very much.
We already got in trouble.
I know. I did. That's why I shouldn't. Yeah.
We'll just put a bleep over what you said.
All right.
Eh?
Okay.
Yeah. That's about that bleep.
One of the fun stories I had this manager when I was in Vegas, the guy that got me into all the trouble. And one day, and I can't use his exact terms, because and he one day he was talking about the kids because I just met this kid. He was 29 maybe, but I'd never seen a guy like that. He had on a solid gold suit. I mean, it was gold thread, and he was his hair was slicked back, diamond rings on every finger, And I asked Charlie about him. I said, who is this guy? And he says, hey, so-and-so's kid, And I said, well, what is he? Is he a doctor? He thought, the doctors, He said, kids today, he said, we tell them, no, we don't want you to be doctors. You got to be lawyers. And I said, well, why is that? He says, because you can't get on Capitol Hill unless you're a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where all the freaking money is.
Right.
They'll bring it to you in suitcases full, And boy, you look at our times today.
Yeah. Out of
You
control.
realize that that's really
He
the
was on
truth.
point, yeah.
That's where all the money is. And they all went for it.
It's where all the money is, where all the power is.
So that was an interesting story for him to tell me. That was 1982. He told me that.
Yeah.
So you don't know that I did the Great American Strip Off.
No.
That was the first
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
the first competition show, and that was what? When we moved out here, we were doing it. So it was 84. Yeah. And they came out here, and the producer looked at where we were living, and I said, who are you hiding from? Because it was out in the Sky Valley, out in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, so that was fun because they put us up at Continental on Sunset and did the show. I did like this really kind of
old style
with the drape mink and the long gown. And
so it was like the old school striptease.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Yep.
Gypsy Rose Lee style.
Oh, absolutely. Because in those days, it was the pole dancer hadn't really kind of come in.
Yeah.
We're talking old fashioned, but anyway, it was kind of fun because it was on the Playboy Channel, and it was just kind of a fun thing to get to do. I wouldn't tell very many people, but since it's just you and
in our audience,
yeah, you wouldn't know about it.
The mothers of your students will be listening to this. I'm never going to let her go.
I know, that's true. Oh dear. Well, at least I'm going to retire soon, so that's okay.
So I have a question. So you said that you're retiring soon. What is there anything that you guys would want to do with your retirement, like in regards to the arts, or just like some? Usually, I ask people, what is your career dream? But as you guys are, kind of getting to chillax, what is your retirement dream?
I don't have one. Do you?
I always thought that my voice was always so strong. It was always something I never had to think about. And I always thought I'll be singing forever. I'll do okay. But after I went in the hospital, while I was in the hospital, they inundate you with such you're breathing poison all the time. And they
disinfectants and all that.
Spray your room with it, and it attacked my bronchioles. And I came out of the hospital, I couldn't sing at all.
Yeah.
Wow. Just recently I started, I'm pretty much back. I would say I'm 99% back, but it really hurt me. But I'd still like to do a few things. I still have some writing that I need to do. I need to write this story down, my story. And I just need to fulfill a few ideas that aren't really solid in my mind. I just know that they're there, and I need to do something, with the experience that we have.
But we look at Whitney as our transferring the torch and stuff. Yeah. Right. Because I don't know. I mean, I had my last kind of fun thing was in Century City. I had a manager, and he wanted me to tell my story. And I had two stories. One was Blues Boulevard, and the other was Las Vegas Memories. And Las Vegas Memories was coming of age story when I first got to Vegas. And he had a person that he thought would. Candace Bushnell's husband was going to want the script. So I went to Century City to the very top penthouse to sign my contract, and I could see the ocean from there. I thought, this is it. I made it, And he picked up my option, and that was it. So that's sitting in my locker, in my house, and my filing cabinet, actually. So maybe someday I would do that, rework it or whatever. I don't know, but that would be for me, I think.
Would you produce that as like a stage show or a film?
No, it's a film. It was an 8 episode for like HBO or something. Yeah, because I mean it's the Folies Bergère background, and all of the glamour of all that, and all the intrigue of backstage,
Pitch it to
and
Netflix.
all these people. That's what I mean. When you go up to San Giancana and you say, "Oh, how are you? What do you do?"
I actually asked him that question.
Those are, but So, and that moment of time, there was a sweep. About more than 400 people were indicted by the FBI. And the FBI came to my door, actually, and asked me, do you know, read out, blah, 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 and do you know, da-da-da? And I said, well, yes, I do. And they were producing Cotton Club. So just sharing, it does come around. And so I don't know, but to me, the story was an interesting story.
Absolutely.
And just didn't. And it's just a universal story. It's about everybody's personality, and you see it replay all the time in modern world. It's just constantly relives itself. It's the frailties of the human spirit, so to speak, and also the triumph of the human spirit. So I don't know. And Blues Boulevard was our story, and we wrote it as a musical, and we won a bunch of awards for it, and we tried to take it to LA, yeah, right. And we consider ourselves Saddam Hussein's first casualty because it was August 11th and that was Desert Shield, right? Desert Shield. And our first night was at Camp Pendleton at the base theater right there. And they were restricted to barracks at 4:00. So when the curtain opened, there wasn't a soul out there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and the colonel said, oh, this is an act of war, Mr. New. You're not going to get us to, honor your contract.
We're not going to pay you either.
So that was the beginning of our 22 base tour setup. So I don't know. There's so much kind of misery there that I don't know if we could ever really resurrect it or not. I don't know. Maybe if I live long enough. I mean, it's really a wonderful story because they came to me and I left him. And that's the interesting part of the Blues Boulevard story, where these runaway girl and a runaway wife, and they come together and they meet in this strip joint. And there really was a strip joint called the Mustang Club. And that was on Harbor Boulevard in Santa Ana. Mm-hmm. And of course, I didn't realize what that meant. But that they got a judge to declare it federal land and made it go topless because they couldn't, there are laws that says if you want to go topless, you can't serve alcohol. Mm-hmm. So it was like bikini when I started. And, so it was interesting that there we were in this club and they got a judge to declare it federal land. So I was like, so we used that one.
Yeah, we had to leave.
But Mustang Club is in the show, and it opens the second act, and it's bitchin'. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's rock and roll. It's a rock opera, and when we tried to do it, musicals were not happening, and now they're just.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah.
Now they're just. Well, the truth of it is there.
Get it to you.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
David's ears are perked. He's like, these sound like great ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, your pitch for the film thing, I think, would play really well because you have things on Netflix now like Narcos, right? Where it's going into the cartels and stuff like
with
that.
All the gorgeous showgirls walking around, like this. Backstage because they're topless, I mean, so you could do that on HBO, you could do that on Stars or something, but you can't do it on regular television. So to me, there's just this glamorous side to it. I mean, we were dancers, we weren't the elegant, gorgeous showgirls,
But I love that you have this balance. You have the glitz and glamour of the entertainment industry and then the seedy underbelly of how all that's funded.
And not just that, but, the dynamics of people who want to be the lead, say, and what they would be willing to do for that. And
anything.
You know what I mean? So there's tension in the dressing rooms. There was like 7 of us in each dressing room, so to speak. And, I have a silly story where I was sitting on my heating pad. That's how I do my warm up. How many dancers do that, right? And I'm running down the stairs. I'm ready to hit the opening. That first opening was like 9 minutes. It was gorgeous. It was Wonderful. So anyway, so that's a long timing queue, darling.
20 minutes after 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, you have to head out to go teach. But thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. I know you have so many more.
Yeah,
Well, we're afraid that
we don't want to get halfway through my list.
we don't want to get arrested, and we don't want you to get arrested. So yeah,
We don't want you to get arrested either.
Well, he has a wonderful story, Johnny Savage. That was what year was that?
I don't remember exactly, but I went to an audition. This is my
For
first
Vegas.
run. This is my first run in with Vegas. I went to an audition in L.A. and they
That was what year? 1970.
had to be 70s. I was still with Maxine, so 70s. Anyway, they, I go in. I threw it out, put my pool gear aside, went to this audition, and Chase Jeffries was running it. Big, tall, good-looking guy. And boy, I went in there and tore that audition up.
Yeah.
They were going to hire this other guy until they saw me. And so I'd never been treated like this before. He comes over and says, here's $500. He says, you and Kenny, my playing partner at the time, says, you and Kenny be in Vegas tomorrow. We're going, whoa, moving kind of fast there, Leroy. And that's the way they put $500 in my hand. I said,
Get to the chase, kid.
okay.
All right.
I forget now. I was going somewhere else. But it was
that you had a manager, and the manager did
that
not.
part of the story.
Yeah, did not want to let you out of it to be Johnny Savage.
Yeah, they wanted to make me Johnny Savage.
And their solution to it was just say the word and
we'll get rid of
we'll
that
have him taken care of. And it was like, okay.
But I had to say the word.
Yeah.
It's
Does this really happen in the world today?
falling off my ear.
Yeah.
I should ask you because you're in the industry.
Well,
Not anymore, right?
no, I'm still in the industry. It's just
No, I don't mean that. I meant this
But-
kind of stuff
but
doesn't happen anymore. It's just history.
I wouldn't say it doesn't.
Oh,
I think that kind of behavior follows money.
That's
Yeah.
right.
well, that's
So,
true. Yeah, you're right.
The business is still full of power players who are just in it for money and
And we'll do anything for
whatever it takes for it.
Well,
So
and you saw what happened to the hotels. Like Caesar's World became Caesar's World Inc. I mean, it's on the stock market.
mhm.
So by becoming a corporation, it legitimizes all of that. I mean, we were there when Steve Wynn was actually a
Dealer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had bought this parking lot that had basically flooded. And
Right
was
next
right
to-
next to Caesar's.
Caesars.
That's where he put the Mirage, right?
No, well, maybe eventually, but he parlayed that into the Golden Nugget
Right.
downtown, which is where he started. And you look at the history of what he did. It's huge.
He built that town.
I mean,
What it is
that
now.
Circus du Soleil changed it completely. So,
Yeah. Well, he's the one responsible for making it family friendly, quote unquote.
Oh.
Air
Oh
quotes.
yeah, there you
Air
go.
quotes.
Family.
yeah.
Big air quotes for that.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was.
What a
I always
crazy town Vegas is.
had to laugh at that one.
Well, you have to know that when we were there, when I first got there, it was in 74, and there was probably 180,000 people there.
Mhm.
So it was really a small town.
Yeah. It's a huge town now.
Yeah, and I can remember I took the bus to get to the ice skating rink, and it was 116 that day, and so the bus was stopped running. So I had to actually hitchhike on the strip to get back to work, and I'd never done anything like that. So it was like, oh, please God, And it was one of those kind of Vegas kind of guys with the shirt down to here and a gold chain, and he was in an Eldorado convertible, and it was like, okay. So, it was just a different time. It really was. It was fun. It was fun, and it was scary. So anyway, do you want to wrap this up, kid? Say
Do I wanna
goodbye.
wrap
Say
this
goodnight,
up?
Gracie.
Good night, crazy.
Well, since we've really covered most of it,
Oh, I don't think so. Never.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
Say
I feel like we only got through the warm-up act. There's a lot of main show to go.
Well,
But
yeah.
We'll
we
just
know
have to
that
have
you
you
guys
come
have to
back.
go. I said we know that you guys have to go.
We'll just have to have you come back on.
Thank you so much
No,
for having
I'm
me.
up here.
I would love to do that. Be a little,
All the time.
maybe a little more prepared now. I understand what we're going to be. Write it down, get it all laid out.
When you're old, those little neurons take a while to get back to your.
But if it's all right with you, Larry, I have both of your CDs. I'm sure we could close the episode with some of
Yeah,
your
but
music.
you don't have Blues Boulevard.
I don't.
No,
I don't have that one.
But we could always get him a script.
I got lots
We
of
have a script and a screenplay. Oh my God.
And she does. She wrote a script
Wheeling and
and a
dealing here.
screenplay, and we've got the music.
Oh dear.
Wheeling
I mean,
I would love to.
Okay.
Look that
okay,
up.
well, that'll happen, David. I promise. That'll happen.
That'd be amazing.
All right. Thank you
All
again.
right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming out, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not done with David yet. He's got to roll me back to my car.
That's great. No problem.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.